Good afternoon and welcome to this afternoon's Member Spotlight brought to you by Brentwood Chamber of Commerce. My name's Colin Barber and I'm the Chairman of Brentwood Chamber of Commerce, and it's my pleasure to host this afternoon's Member Spotlight with our guest this afternoon, Jane Bennett from Bennetts Funeral Directors. I work as a trainer, coach and consultant specialising in the application of psychology in business. My key philosophy in business is helping you understand how people work. So I'm particularly interested in running these webinars to find out a little bit more about the members of Brentwood Chamber of Commerce and how they run their businesses. Obviously like to welcome you, the viewers, this afternoon, and hope that you find the webinar interesting and informative. The background to these webinars is actually we used to run an event, and hopefully we'll run an event again in the future, called Meet the Members, where various members would invite us to visit their premises and find a little bit out about how they run their business. Obviously that's not possible at the moment, so we decided that we'd run a virtual Meet the Member with a spotlight on a different member for each webinar to find out a little bit more about them and their business and how they operate. From your point of view as a viewer, we would hope that it would give you an opportunity to find out more about the members and how you could maybe do business with particular members, and also hopefully to learn a little bit about how each member runs their business. So maybe some tips that you can pick up by listening to the members that you could perhaps apply to your business. So the way it works is I'm going to have a chat with Jane about her business for the next half hour or so. There's an opportunity for you to ask any questions you've got. The way that works, if you haven't been on one of these webinars before, is if you'd like to hit the Q&A button and type in your question, and then I can put that to Jane on your behalf. Also, just to mention, today's webinar is being recorded for broadcast on YouTube, and it should be uploaded to YouTube sometime tomorrow. So if you don't get a chance to see all the webinar, or if you'd like to watch it again or recommend it to one of your friends or colleagues, then it will be available to view on YouTube from tomorrow. And also, of course, if you missed any of the previous member spotlights, then they are all available on the Chamber of Commerce YouTube channel as well. So I think it's really time for us to meet our guest this afternoon, who is Jane Bennett. Are you there, Jane?
I'm here.
Hello, Jane, and welcome to this afternoon's Member Spotlight. And I'm guessing, are you at home or in your office?
I'm at home.
You're at home, okay, good. Relaxing at home, yeah. That's good. Is that the way you are things at the moment? Are you working from home most of the time, or are you doing a bit of both? Or?
Well, during the lockdown, we decided it might be a good idea for us to split into two teams to try and protect our colleagues, so that if one member in one team actually contracted COVID, then at least the other team could step in if necessary. So my days at home were Thursdays and Fridays, and since we've gone back as one team, which we did a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, I've actually stuck to that. So I'm still working at home on Thursdays, and then Fridays if necessary, and if not, I'm having a little bit of time off.
Oh, good, excellent. We did lose your picture for a while, Jane. You've just come back on now, so there was a message saying your bandwidth was low, but fortunately we didn't lose the audio, so we heard everything you said, and hopefully the picture will stay with us for the rest of the webinar. So indeed, as you said, it's been presumably quite a busy time for you over the last few months, and hopefully turning the corner now, things gradually getting back to a more normal situation, both for Bennett's and for the country in general.
Yes, I think for us, it's been, weirdly, the funerals have still been going ahead as they should do. So families have been able to have a proper service, although not in church. The only difference is that the numbers of those attending has vastly reduced, and at times Bentley Crematorium were only permitting 10 people in. Now there are more, but what it's done, it was really odd. It's only recently that they've stopped people singing at services. So up until a few weeks ago, you could sing, but now they've stopped singing. But people have found different ways to personalise the service. So there's been lots of times when neighbours have lined the route away from a family's house. or there's been a guard of honour at the crematorium or the cemetery. So there's just been different ways that people have been able to personalise it. And a lot of the services have been webcast so that family and friends all over the world could still see it, albeit the fact that they couldn't be there in person.
Yeah, so again, even in your line of business, so modern technology, you know, the webcast has taken over, and certainly, obviously, an example of where it's been very beneficial for people who wouldn't have otherwise been able to attend the funeral.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so let's look at your organisation, Jane Bennetts. Obviously, the company bears your family name, and I believe you've got quite a long family history. The company, indeed, it seems it's probably one of the longest established businesses in Brentwood, and certainly probably one of the longest established on Brentwood High Street. So, tell us a little bit about how it all started way back.
Well, obviously, as a child, I grew up knowing that I was part of this family business. But being a mere female, it was never really expected of me to go into the business. It was very much a male-dominated industry. That's changed quite a lot and is continuing to change. So when I left school, I went and did a secretarial course in Chelmsford and did some local work. And then I moved to Market and worked in Cambridge for the Department of the Environment for a while. Then I moved back to Brentwood, and I saw in the Daily Mail a job advertised for Central Trustee Savings Bank in the city. So I thought, I'll go and work in the city, because I think then it seemed, when you're young, it seems quite glamorous to go and get a job in the city. And it was great. I was in the financial futures team, and we had a lovely time, great team, very fast moving, obviously, very sociable. And then in the late 80s, my mother knew that the gentleman who was then the manager of Bennetts was due to retire. And she literally said to me, "Do you want to have a go?" And I did think about it. It wasn't an instant yes or no. But at the time, in the late 80s in the city, it was quite a difficult time. There were a lot of redundancies. Our bank was due to merge with another. I wasn't sure about security of my job. So I decided to take the plunge and head from the city to the family business. And I remember on the first day going into the office with rickety desks and an old manual typewriter, and having come from a dealing room to then go into this office, I did, to start with, think, oh, what have I done? But, you know, once I've made up my mind, that was it, and I was going to carry on with it. And that's what I did. I'm still here, I'm still learning. We continue to learn on a daily basis. There's been challenges along the way, and I think going back 30 plus years, a lot of the challenges were because of the fact that I was female. I wouldn't be regarded as the person at the helm because I was a mere female. And it's quite funny because I think all of the ladies that work with me still get referred to from time to time as a receptionist or the lady who answers the phone, because I think people still expect it to be quite a male-dominated area.
Yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it? How certain businesses be associated, you know, with being male-dominated. So tell me, Jane, when you first started at Bennetts after you left the city, did you go straight in as a manager, or did you sort of work your way up?
Well, this is what made it even more difficult, because Ted Pitt, who was the manager there and had worked for us for 40 years, he was going to retire in a year. So I went in as an assistant, and when he retired a year later, I became the MD. So you can understand that I put people's backs up, really, because I went into the business knowing nothing. really nothing at all. So I thought the best thing was to study for my diploma in funeral directing, to actually prove to my colleagues that I was learning and did know what I was doing. And I got involved with various local funeral association meetings as well, so that I could meet other people and get to know what was happening in the industry.
So it's quite a steep learning curve then.
It was vertical, has to be
Yeah,
said.
I can imagine. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Bennett's, sort of way back, how it all started off the business originally. Was it your great grandfather, your grandfather who started the business, and how did that come about?
It was my grandfather, and the business was then down at Brook Street, opposite the Golden Fleece, where there's a tyre place there now.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah.
And we were there. We were builders merchants, and a lot of funeral directors used to be builders, and because they would have the carpenters who would be able to make the coffins, they would have had the labourers who could have helped with grave digging and carrying the coffin. They would have then had a cart to actually move a coffin around, although we had a horse-drawn hearse as well, but we had everything, and we had everybody that we needed to be able to carry out the funeral. So in the 1881 census, we were listed as builders, and in the 1891 census, we were listed as undertakers. So that's where I've based our established from date, from there, although evidently we were around much before that.
Yeah, so certainly a very long history, and certainly one of the, as I say, oldest, more established businesses in Brentwood. So you have a very close relationship with Brentwood. You're very well known in the community. I know you get involved in lots of community things. Is that just because the way it's worked out, is that a deliberate policy on your part in terms of publicising your business?
I think that my father was always very community minded. And interestingly, I went and did a talk at Rotary about a year or two back. And as I sat down next to the president, I noticed on the front of the Rotary box, where they keep all their paperwork and books and things like that, it was presented by Arthur Bennett back in 1940 or 50 something. And I've been into different churches, and there's been benches that were given by my father. And we resurrected a bowls event about 8 or 10 years ago, and that was something that my father had started again back in the day. So I think it's me. We are part of the community because of what we do. We work closely with the ministers, we work with doctors, and therefore it seems natural for me to want to work with the community and the charities as well, because we are there to help and support one another.
Yeah, so it's very much it's an unusual business, yours, because from a traditional marketing point of view, you go out and you market your business looking for customers. But of course, the unusual thing about your business is no one knows they're going to be most people don't know they're going to be a customer of yours until it sort of until it actually happens. So I guess the idea is you want to be established in the minds of people, but you don't want people to you can't market yourself in advance. It's very, very unusual type of marketing, isn't it? But I guess what you really want is you want people to be aware of your brand, but they don't necessarily know if and when they're going to be a customer.
That's right, and that's why we offer to people the opportunity to advertise in our window for events, for charities in general, for fundraising, because we want other people to know that we are helping people out. And I will do networking, and that's why I go to the chamber meetings as well, because I feel that, and I've said this before, I think that people buy people. So if you can come across in a kindly way, you would hope that then people would think of you or us as the people that they would want to deal with or they would want their families to deal with as well.
Yeah, so as you say, it's all about people being aware of you and your presence in Brentwood. And certainly from a chamber point of view, I know you've sponsored the Business Awards the last 2 years. I believe it's customer service category in the Business Awards, which again is a way of promoting your name amongst the community.
Yes, and in the past we've actually entered a lot of business awards as well in different categories: customer service, training, community. But we thought now it's time to give back and actually sponsor those events rather than taking part in them.
Yeah, and you're also involved in, hopefully we'll also be involved in the future in Brentwood in Bloom, won't you? I know you said gardening is one of your hobbies.
Oh, it's one of my passions. I got that from my mother, and I took over the lead of Brentwood in Bloom some years ago when Peter Baggett had retired, and he'd led it for years, and it was brilliant. There were some really good categories, and in the end it fizzled out as much as anything with a lot of people through lack of interest, and the schools because it didn't fit into the curriculum. And going to the schools was absolutely fantastic, and I went to make an award to Doddinghurst School when they won, which was the last year that we'd actually had the event, and the children were so enthusiastic and so overjoyed that they won, and it will stay with me forever because they were just so delighted. And that was a school project. They'd actually performed brilliantly. So hopefully next year, Colin, we can resurrect it and see where it goes.
Yes, well, as you know, we were planning to resurrect it this year. It obviously didn't happen, but certainly we've got plenty of time to plan it for next year. So yes, we should have Brentwood in Bloom back on the calendar for 2021, and
absolutely
look forward to your support on that. Jane, you mentioned earlier on about your window displays, and obviously in such a prominent position just by the traffic lights at the top of King's Road there. Many a time I've stopped at the traffic lights, several times each week and look in your window. It's always fascinates me all the different, not just the different organisations which are in your window, but also the artistic quality of the displays. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And obviously you said it's about your being involved in the community, but who does the windows? Is it one person, or how does it all work?
There are two people who look after the window. There's Penny and Tina, and since GDPR became to the fore, was that 18 months ago, something like that now, it seems as though it's been around forever. Prior to that, we used to let people go into the window and decorate it themselves. But because we have such sensitive information in the office, we can't let them do that now. So people actually bring everything in, and sometimes they'll give us a plan, sometimes they'll leave it up to us. Sometimes they'll stand outside and point to where things should go. And yeah, so it's generally Penny and Tina who do that. But of late, again, that's not happened very much. We've tended to have the same stuff in there for the last few months, just promoting the fact that charities still need funding when they haven't been able to run events. So hopefully there's just a little bit going forward for the charities still from seeing things and being highlighted in our window.
How long do the window displays normally last then in normal times?
There'd be 2 to 3 weeks.
2 to 3 weeks, right? Yeah. I was thinking it was about that. I was trying to work out how often I see a change in the window, but certainly,
yes.
I think it's a site which many people in Brentwood are very familiar with, and again, it all adds to enhancing your reputation within the community. So I want to ask also a little bit about how the funeral business has changed over the years. I mean, one thing I'm aware of is that there are quite a lot of major companies involved in funerals nowadays, and presumably you've managed to retain your independence over the years. Has that been been difficult? Is it becoming more and more business overtaken by major corporate players, or?
Yes, there's a company called Dignity who own a lot of the crematoria. They own Bentley Crematorium, for instance. They own a lot of funeral directors. And then there are the different co-ops. There are some large independent companies as well. But those of us who are independent tend to belong to a trade association called SAFE, which is the Society of Allied and Independent Funeral Directors. So we very much stick together with helping one another out. And I had a webinar earlier actually, which was a safe-led webinar. And so they help and support us. And yes, we get regular contact from people who want to buy us, but there's absolutely no way that I'm going to sell. Just for me, for the team, and also the fact that my father would turn in his grave properly. So no, we're here for the duration.
Good. We're very pleased to hear that, and you know, hopefully you're in business in many more years in Brentwood. And how has the business changed over the years in terms of how it's operated? I mean, obviously there's been, I guess one thing is presumably cremations are a lot more frequent than they used to be. It used to be more burials than cremations. Are there other ways in which the business has changed over since you've been running it?
Since I've been running it, goodness, then service sheets would have been a black and white folded card, and we would go to Westbury Press at the bottom of the yard and we would put things together with them and they would print them off. Nowadays we tend to put them together. You can have photos included, you can have backgrounds. The technology has just played absolute wonders, because it means that we can email the proofs of the service sheets to other people. They can ping them back again, they can show them to other members of family, they can send them to people who may be in different parts of the country and then watching a service on the webcast, which, as I say, has been taking place a lot more recently. And the webcasts themselves have enabled people to be part of the service. As far as vehicles are concerned, back in the day would have just had the horses. They were stabled up at our premises in the High Street. They were turned out down King's Road opposite the brewery tap. They were on fields there. They would come up, they'd be stabled. We made the coffins there. Vastly different. But say, since I've been there, we've got different fleets. We did just have the Rolls Royces. We've now also got Mercedes and the Land Rover Defender fleet. There are different options for vehicles. You can have anything from the Trotters Reliant Robin hearse to a motorbike hearse to a lorry to a fire engine. So that's changed hugely. What people wear as well. People will often ask for bright colours. Our gentlemen are sometimes requested to wear different colour ties. So if somebody had a favourite colour or supported a football team, we could wear those colour ties. We get a lot of West Ham supporters funerals that we arrange. So we have a claret and blue tie. We have a bubble machine that we take so we can blow bubbles at the end of the service to go along with the West Ham theme song, and that's played quite a lot. And non-religious services, you know that it used to be that you would only have a vicar or a priest at a service, and now you have a lot of non-religious services, which gives people scope to do much more of what they want and they feel is appropriate for the person who's died.
Interesting. And I know, Jane, you don't just arrange funerals; you also offer bereavement services for your clients as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how that evolved?
Yes, our main group started 13 years ago. It's run at St George's Church Hall down by the Robin pub, at the side of the church, side of St George's Church. And that's obviously stopped for the time being because of the COVID-19. They are a fantastic group. They are supportive of one another. A lot of the people have been going some time, and not because that they need to go for the bereavement support, but they've made firm friends And also they recognise new people, and they can literally say to them, I know what you're going through. I know how it's been. This is how it was for me. This is what you might find helpful. So they really are a helping hand or a shoulder to cry on. So that's been running all of that time. We also have days out with them. We are meeting for the first time. We have an afternoon tea booked, obviously with safe distancing, and that's going to be in the middle of August. So they are really looking forward to getting back together again. And then my colleague Bridget runs our parents group, and that has been running for 6 years now, and that also meets once a month in Brentwood, and Bridget will offer telephone support as well. And then on our website there is grief chat, which is run by SAFE, and people can get online support through that as well. So lots of different areas that we're able to support. And if people need one-to-one, we can signpost them towards organisations where they can get that.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Jane, and certainly something that not everyone will be aware of in terms of the overall service which you offer to the people of Brentwood. And what about your employees? Because obviously it can be quite a stressful environment to work in. Do you have any special ways in which you look after your welfare of your employees? Is a special knack to it, or how do you manage that?
If we have something that we go through that is particularly traumatic, we can share that with colleagues. We prefer not to take it home, although sometimes you can't help it, just because we do get upset by what we hear and what we experience with the families as well. But SAFE run also support for funeral directors, so that there are confidential helplines for them as well.
Good. So the SAFE organisation is very, very helpful in many ways then.
Yes, it is.
Excellent. Good. So finally, Jane, on a lighter note, I just wanted to ask you about what I know one of your hobbies is gardening, but your other hobby you told me is walking, and I was interested to hear that you started the Camino de Santiago walk from the Pyrenees to Santiago de Compostela in Spain, which
Yes.
I'm sure many of our viewers will be interested to hear about. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how you came to do it, and what progress you're making with it?
Well, I had been talking about it with friends for ages, and then my friend Sue and I, beginning of last year, said, right, we've been talking about it long enough, let's go and do it. So we arranged the first week, we're walking from St John Pied de Port over the Pyrenees to, I can't remember where, I think it was Pamplona. And oh, it was just fabulous. We didn't want to come home. It's an amazing experience, because you speak to people from all over the world and you hear their stories, and you might walk along with somebody for an hour and chat to them. You might spend a day walking with them. You might start walking one day with somebody and then finish with somebody else. You might catch up in the evening. So it was just fantastic. We didn't want to come back, and we were planning initially on doing a week a year to do the 500 miles over 5 years, but we couldn't wait. So we went back end of September last year and did another 200 miles. And we were due to go back at the end of May this year to complete the final 200 to Santiago, and then walk from there the final 100 miles to Finisterre. But it wasn't to be. So we know where the accommodation is, we know where to fly to, we just need to book our flights and our accommodation for another time. When it is, I don't know. I think it's too soon to plan it for this year, but hopefully for next year. It's just amazing. I would just suggest anybody to do it, because it's quite incredible, at the amount of people that you meet, and the stories, and how the walk helps them with what they're going through. We met one guy who we called Santiago Bill. he came from California, and that was his third time of walking the Compostela, and he was in his early 70s. Each time he'd gone for a reason, and the walk gave him the answers to his questions. But obviously as time went on, he had other questions and he went back. But he was quite incredible, really. And so have the other people been that we've met. And there was one guy who we met last year. He was only a young man. He was walking with no shoes on. So you had to think, I don't know what his questions were, but I do hope that he got the answers at the end of it.
Well, I can tell, Jane, from where you're describing it, it sounds like a very meaningful and a very deep, important thing to undertake. And I'm sure you will get to finish your walk at some stage. And obviously, the good thing is it's something for you to look forward to.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, Jane, well, thanks very much for joining us this afternoon. I've really enjoyed talking to you. It's been fascinating, and I hope you, the viewers, have enjoyed hearing a little bit about Jane and Bennetts Funeral Directors. Just to remind you that the webinar is being recorded and it will be available to view on the Brentwood Chamber of Commerce YouTube channel from tomorrow, and we'll send you an email with a link to the channel, and feel free to watch any of the previous Member Spotlight webinars as well. Just to let you know about our next webinar coming up, and we're taking a sort of a break for the next few weeks, given that hopefully some of you might manage to squeeze in a holiday, or either that or you're now busy knuckling down with your work. So in about 4 weeks' time, we've got our next Meet the Members webinar with Bob Clark from Greenhouse Marketing on Tuesday the 25th of August. We've made that one at 6 p.m. because, again, on the basis that a lot of you are back at work now, so we thought 6 p.m. would be better time to do that one. So Tuesday the 25th of August with Bob Clark. And in fact, Bob Clark designed the new chamber logo. You may have noticed that we changed our logo, I think it was about a year or so ago, and Bob Clark and Greenhouse Marketing were the company behind that. So I'm sure we'll be interested to hear a little bit more about their story. So all that remains really is to thank you all very much for joining us this afternoon, and most importantly to thank you, Jane, for joining us, and we've enjoyed listening to your story, and wish you all a pleasant day, and hope to see you all again in a not too distant future. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.